correctly. So when you said, that 300 bushel mark, you were saying that micros could help get you there, but if you really want big gains from micronutrients, you need to have a biological system that's releasing precursors to allow those to function.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but biology is the foundation. And so, I think what we've found is if you have got soil drainage right, you've got pH right, you've got surface drainage right, you're keeping oxygen in your soil, you've got a good soil that can hold water, your biological activity is probably pretty good on its own.
Yep.
And so where I live in West Central Illinois, the guys that got those foundational pieces right, we don't always get responses from biological inputs there.
Because they're already cranking.
The thing we do in those environments is we create efficiencies. We speed up the metabolism of the plant. We speed up the flow of nutrients. So how I look at this, if you've got really good soil and you've got the foundation right, we can get you highly efficient on your nutrient program.
Okay.
Where we absolutely, do great things with yield responses with the biology is more in the degraded soils.
Yep.
Either heavy crops that are really intensive farming practices like potatoes, where we go out into sands, where we go north where we have less growing degrade day units. That's where we're seeing these big yield responses from applying the biology. So I think you guys, a lot of companies go out and they always promote it. There's a bushel gain of X surrounding everything. And I don't think we can look at, in agronomy, it's hard to look at anything like that,
Yeah, there's way too many factors.
Way too many factors.
That's the part I thought of. We went to Commodity Classic last year, and I thought to myself, take the equipment out. And these are all the factors, as myself as an agronomist, have to pull together.
Yeah.
And that's everything from weatherman to, which the farmer's doing it too. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, poor me. It's like, it just tells you how much information, how much data is coming in. And it sounds like you guys are, bringing out the corn knives and helping deciphering that data a little bit.
Yeah. We joked yesterday, that we should do a whole series on our failures at Calibrate, that's where we learn, and so pick up and keep going. And that's been the rewarding part of strike out, oof, aha moment, And so it's kind of been our rhythm and flow the last 10 years of this whole understanding what biology does for you and how in different environments, what you're going to get out of it. And so as we see companies promoting, use our product for 2 years, reduce your fertility by 50%.
Yep.
Or you can reduce by so many pounds of N. There's years where we do our no fertility plots every year. Mm-hmm. We do 0 to 200 pounds of nitrogen. We don't put any PK out. And there's a lot of years where we, if we get a good growing season, moisture stays about constant all year, we use biology and furrow, we'll grow 200 bushel corn. No problem.
Yep.
The next year where it won't quit raining, it's 65 bushel corn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So understanding that the environment still will shift your availability in a big way. So what we try to do is through SAP, through tissue, plant biomass correlations, is get an average of what nutrient flow we increase.
Okay.
When we apply BioAg-E, for instance.
Yep.
What are we getting on NPKs and micros as far as added nutrients over just a control, and replicate that out so we get an idea of saying, okay, under this soil type we can release 30% more on average in an average year. Mm-hmm. This soil we're only getting 15. So that's but it's really pretty easy to do. It's not that complicated to measure those flows. And so when we come in with a grower and we're talking, okay, what can you reduce fertility when you incorporate a biological system or get your biological system working for you, it's always a conversation of going back to the foundation, going back to looking at your soil, and understanding that. And at home, I always talk, we got ground selling for $24,000 an acre, all the way down to $8,000. And if you think about that, the 24,000's got a lot bigger bank.
Yep.
That you can pull from. It's got just a lot more release. And we've got fields where we've applied very little PK over the last 12 years, no yield ramifications, but light, highly eroded soils. Mm-hmm. Boom, that yield, 4 or 5 years started to slide below the 10-year average. on our yield. So that's what I think we bring in as a team.
Yeah.
We've kind of been down this road of
been there, done that.
Been there, done that. We bought into the whole, you get your biology right, you don't need much else. And there's some truths in it, but there's also, we found some pretty big, things that aren't true with that statement.
Okay. So there's two thoughts that came to mind. We'll start with the first one since we kind of talked about the biological realm first. So the biological side, I know we talked about this a couple months ago, and I mentioned in this podcast before of, people growing their own biology or taking their own home inoculum.
Yeah.
And growing that and promoting that. Now, with that being said, you got to have logistics. You got to have the effort of willing to learn.
Yep.
Because there's a chance it falls on its face. Okay. Yep. What's your thought on that and what you've learned? Because I know you've probably done the research on it. So
well, that's where I started.
Okay.
We started making our own compost tea. Had a neighbor I was working with, and he had played with it and said he had a 10% yield gain across his whole farm. And so we started making our own basically in my garage, and dirt floor shed, and started playing around with it. The first year we had in corn a lot of 20 to 40 bushel gains with it.
Oh, wow.
And so me and Luke, my brother, are like,
yeah,
we just stumbled across the gold mine here.
That's right.
And so next year, a few neighbors do it, some friends, and 0 to 20 bushel, and probably 60% win rate.
Okay.
And so it led us back to, why?
Why?
Right? We used the same source, we did it the same way, and so it gets complicated. And in an agronomy, there's infinite variables.
Yep.
So it goes down to the hybrid, the year, the weather, all those things formulate how you get to that, how well that product responds. So it sent us on a quest to deep dive in everything and run an RNA test, PLFA test, direct microscopy,
every part,
look, bought microscopes, took Elaine Ingram's soil food web class, did all that. And so then, as we got better at understanding how to build our own compost, how to bring consistency to the brewing cycles and all that, we started consulting with lots of farmers.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Doing John Su bioreactors.
Yep.
And then they would, have their own extraction methods and apply it on their own farm. And, as we see it, 80 to 90% of the John Su's are kind of a failure, the compost coming out. And what's crazy about it is you'll have a guy make 4 totes the same way, the same day, with the same material.
Totally different.
And he's got one that's just phenomenal, beneficial, and the other 3 are bacteria dominant, anaerobic. They seem to be finicky, and I'm not trying to point fingers at it, just what we've observed through the calls and over the years working with guys. And so it's not that it can't be done successful, because I've seen it.
Yeah.
But it does take that whole fail, repeat, and then to get it dialed in. So what we've come up with is a system where our carrier for BioAggie is still compost. It's still a compost material.
Okay.
But we've learned how to interject new species in. Through our process, we control our compost temperature, humidity, going back to the environment.
All the
temperature,
factors,
humidity,
environment,
water, oxygen, we control all that. And then we can manipulate the material through feeding and get a rise in temperature and a fallback. And there's certain places in there where I can interject new species.
Gotcha.
And so when we first started and we first did our first RNA test 6 years ago, we was really good at nutritional pathways. We really didn't have stress adaptation pathways for the plant. We didn't have hormonal pathways. We didn't have any biocontrols. And the biocontrols are essentially what outcompete the pathogen or produce compounds that kill pathogens. And so we didn't have any of that. And over time, we have built all that in, over the last 3 years, and learned to stabilize it. We feel really happy. Our stabilization process, there's nothing added.
Sweet.
It's just a complex community, and when you get all the pieces of the community together, We have an 18 to 24 month shelf life on the product.
Wow.
And so the big thing I can say is if you're going to do it yourself, you better be thinking of the environment that your material is in if you're going to make your own material and how you manage that environment.
Yeah.
So that was our big aha.
Guys, if you've liked the information that you've seen so far, go ahead and check out the full-length podcast on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there. It's also on all the major podcast platforms. We're constantly dropping info and more content on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Check it out for a lot more content.